Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the world of Australian coins to look at two of the most interesting 50-cent pieces: the 1970 Captain Cook commemorative coin and the 1971 standard issue 50-cent coin. Both of these coins look simple at first glance, but their values can be surprising, especially if you've got the right one sitting in your collection or change jar. So which of these 50-cent coins is more valuable and why? Let's break it down and see which one could put more cash in your pocket. Let's get started. First up, Australian 50-cent coin. The very released in 1966, was round and made of silver. However, due to rising silver prices, the government quickly withdrew it from circulation because the metal value was actually worth more than the coin itself. After that short-lived experiment, the mint introduced the iconic dodecagonal or 12-sided design in 1969, struck in copper nickel instead of silver. By 1970, the Royal Australian Mint decided to issue the first special commemorative design celebrating the bicentenary of Captain James Cook's voyage along the east coast of Australia in 1770. The design of the 1970 50-cent coin is what truly sets it apart. The obverse, like all coins of the time, features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Arnold Machen, showing her youthful profile with the royal tiara. The reverse, however, is where the magic happens. Designed by Stuart Devlin, the coin depicts a stylized portrait of Captain Cook superimposed over a map of Australia's east coast. This symbolic design paid tribute to Cook's exploration and the 200th anniversary of his landing, a key historical event that shaped the narrative of modern Australia. For collectors, this was groundbreaking. It was the first time Australia used the 50-cent coin to tell a story. Now let's talk about minting figures. In 1970, the Royal Australian Mint struck a total of 16.5 million commemorative 50-cent coins, which was a substantial mintage for a commemorative release at the time. However, unlike the later 1981 issue where coins were produced overseas due to demand, all of the 1970 coins were struck domestically. At the Canberra Mint, the number you often hear in collecting circles doesn't directly apply to this year, but the idea of mintage scale and how many survive in high grade is crucial. Out of those millions minted, only a fraction remain today in pristine and circulated condition, and it is those examples that attract premium prices. So what is the value of the 1970 50-cent coin? Well, as with most collectible coins, condition is everything. Circulated examples, the kind you might still find in an old drawer or in bulk coin lots, are usually only worth around their face value, maybe up to $2 to $3 if in decent shape. But in uncirculated or near mint condition, these coins can fetch anywhere from $10 to $25 depending on collector demand. And if you have one in a proof set which was specially struck for collectors with a mirror-like finish, the value can climb higher, sometimes in the range of $30 to $60 or more, and in original packaging. What makes the 1970 50-cent coin even more appealing is the fact that it started a trend. It was the first commemorative, paving the way for future releases that would celebrate national achievements, historical events, and cultural milestones. This means owning a 1970 piece is like holding the beginning of a tradition that continues to this day. In terms of collectability, it's often one of the first commemorative coins collectors look for when they subscribe to annual mint issues or when they start a themed collection focusing on Australian decimal commemoratives. Another interesting aspect for enthusiasts is the study of varieties and strike quality. While the 1970 issue doesn't have as many well-documented varieties as later coins, there are minor differences in strike sharpness and die, or that advanced collectors pay attention to. Some examples display softer details in Captain Cook's portrait or less defined coastlines on the map due to the heavy demand on dies during production. While these aren't usually classified as major varieties, coins with unusually sharp strikes are often more desirable to collectors, especially those chasing the highest graded specimens for their sets. For those considering subscriptions or extending into coin collecting communities, the 1970 coin serves as a reminder of why subscriptions can be worthwhile. Today, the Royal Australian Mint offers annual subscription services, or collectors can automatically receive new issues including commemoratives and proofs. If such a system had been in place in 1970, subscribers would have secured one of these iconic coins straight from the mint in perfect condition. That's one of the main benefits of subscribing. You lock in coins at issue price and preserve them in the best possible state, which can be crucial when decades later. Condition is the biggest driver of value. Now let's consider the broader legacy of the 1970 50-cent coin. Beyond its numismatic value, it represents a key moment in Australian coin design and identity. It demonstrated that coins could be more than just currency. They could be miniature works of art and history lessons in your pocket. Today the tradition continues with dozens of different commemorative issues released every decade, but it all started with this coin. For younger collectors, or those just entering the hobby learning about the 1970 50 cent, it is a powerful way to understand the evolution of Australia's decimal coinage and why so many people become hooked on the hunt. In conclusion, the 1970 Australian 50-cent coin is not just a piece of metal, but a milestone in Australia's coinage story. It's the first commemorative celebrating a pivotal event in national history, and while its face value remains 50 cents, its collectible value can be many times higher, especially in mint or proof condition. With a mintage of over 16 million, it isn't rare in the absolute sense, but finding one in pristine shape is becoming harder as time passes, whether you're a seasonal. Next up, by 1971, Australia's decimal currency system was still relatively young, having replaced pounds, shillings, and pence in 1966. The 50-cent coin had already gone through a major transformation. The original 1966 round silver version was withdrawn because the silver content made it too valuable to use in circulation. From 1969 onward, the 50-cent coin took on its now familiar 12-sided or dodecagonal shape, struck in copper-nickel instead of silver. The 1971 issue is one of those early copper-nickel pieces that helped cement the coin's place in the daily lives of Australians. The 1971 50-cent coin weighs 15.55 grams, measures 31.51 millimeters across, and is made of 75 copper and 25 nickel. The coin's distinctive 12-sided shape helps stand out and prevents confusion with the round 20-cent coin. The edge is plain with no lettering or reading. While its silvery appearance might make it look like a precious metal coin, it contains no silver. Its value lies in its history, mintage, and collector demand. The obverse or head side features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth designed by Arnold Machen. This effigy shows the Queen wearing the girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, and it was used on Australian decimal coins from 1966 until 1980. For around the portrait is the legend Elizabeth to Australia 1971. For many collectors, this portrait is nostalgic, as it's the one most commonly associated with early Australian decimal issues. On the reverse is the iconic Australian coat of arms designed by Stuart Devlin, who was the chief designer of Australia's decimal coinage. The central shield displays the 6 state badges: the Cross of St. George for New South Wales, the Southern Cross for Victoria, the Maltese Cross and Crown for Queensland, the Piping Shrike for South Australia, the Black Swan for Western Australia, and the Lion for Tasmania. The shield is supported by a kangaroo and emu, both symbols of progress, because they can't easily move backward with wattle in the background. Australia's national floral emblem, this design is still in use today on the 50-cent coin. One of the key points about the 1971 issue is its high mintage. Over 60 million coins were struck for circulation, which makes it one of the most common 50-cent coins of the early 1970s. Because of this, many people in Australia today still come across these coins in change. However, finding examples in pristine and circulated condition is far more difficult, since most of these coins saw heavy circulation over the past 5 decades. That makes higher grade examples more collectible. So what is the 1971 50-cent coin worth today? In circulated condition, the coin is generally only worth its face value, about 50 cents AUD. However, uncirculated examples can sell for between $5 and $10 AUD depending on quality. If the coin comes from an official mint set, it may fetch a little more, often in the $15 to $20 AUD range. For collectors building year sets of Australian decimal coins, the 1971 -1 cent is a must-have, so demand for uncirculated examples remains strong. While the 1971 coin is not rare in itself, there are occasional error coins that increase value dramatically. These include off-center strikes, die cracks, or clip plankets. Some collectors also report weak strikes where parts of the coat of arms lack detail. Errors can range from $50 to several $100 depending on their visibility and uniqueness. This makes it worthwhile to carefully check your 1971 coins rather than dismissing them as just common pocket change. If you're adding a 1971 50-cent coin to your collection, the best option is to look for uncirculated or mint set examples. Always handle your coins carefully by the edges to avoid fingerprints and scratches. And never clean them, since cleaning reduces their collector value. Coins should be stored in holders, flips, or albums designed for numismatics, which will protect them from tarnish and environmental damage. If you come across an error or especially high-grade example, professional grading might be worthwhile to lock in its value. To wrap things up, the 1971 Australian 50-cent coin is a high mintage issue with over 60 million produced, but it remains an important part of Australia's coinage history. Its beautiful coat of arms design, its role in the early years of decimal currency, and the potential for rare error finds make it a coin worth holding on to, especially in top condition. While it may not make you rich, it's a classic that belongs in every collection. If you enjoy this deep dive into the 1971 50-1 coin, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Do you have a 1971 50-cent coin in your collection? And have you ever spotted an error variety? Stick around, because in our next video we'll look at another